We've got another CNN panel to look at today, this time covering Trump's latest PR stunt that I thought would make a good way for us to cover what actually went down, that being his trip to McDonald's. That wasn't all what it seemed, so let's jump into these clips and hop back in with the needed context.
Oh, once again, Donald Trump pretends to have a job that he doesn't have, has to fake the whole place because he can't actually walk in and work or pretend that he knows what he's doing.
You've got to secure it.
But it's the idea of what Donald Trump says and projects versus what he actually knows how to do. It's a fascinating prison.
I'm learning for the first time. Are you saying Donald Trump didn't actually work at a McDonald's?
Shocking, right?
I'm learning this for the first time. I can't believe the Democratic reaction to this today. That he has caused them to lose their minds. It's been great.
I think this is the most normal thing Donald Trump has done in months. He didn't talk about a famous golfer's junk. He didn't say that Ukraine should surrender to Russia. He didn't give promise a tax cut to anyone who walked by his peripheral vision.
That bit at the end was pretty funny, admittedly. I mean, yeah, he did at least make it through without complimenting anyone's privates or yelling about how great Putin is. Now, interesting things about this stunt to mention, the McDonald's in question is actually one where the owner has refused to raise minimum wage from the lowest he's allowed to have it, which is $7.25, by the way, despicable. And it's been the site of numerous protests because of this. So when Trump went there, it was closed down. He wasn't taking actual orders. And those he did take orders from came from hand-picked civilians, Trump supporters, where they then did rehearsals and everything before they started filming, to where these people had a script of what they could and couldn't say and had to order. But he's working there just like you and me, for sure. I mean, them hiring felons is pretty accurate, at least. He's pretty much the new Hamburglar.
Including the fact that when he was president, he made it harder to go after McDonald's for wage theft. He opposed raising the minimum wage, continues to oppose raising the minimum wage. He has likewise cut funding for OSHA, which is the federal agency that inspects workplaces like McDonald's
for dramatically overregulates many businesses.
I mean, if you
adds those regulatory costs,
if you work at McDonald's,
that get passed on in terms of an inflationary standpoint. So,
I don't think that's true. But
no, it is true.
It's not. If you are somebody who is scalded by the fryer.
Not only did Trump make it harder to go after corporations like McDonald's for wage theft, which, by the way, is the largest and most profitable form of theft in this country, but he weakened the NLRB to make it harder for these workers to unionize against a corporation like McDonald's or to have any backing for the workers. So corporations could effectively get away with anything they wanted while also refusing to raise the minimum wage, where, as we discussed, this exact McDonald's refused to raise it, where it's $7.25, keep in mind, absolutely despicable, not livable anywhere, especially not in Pennsylvania. And about OSHA regulations, we'll get into regulations after the next clip, or how his regulatory or deregulatory record, I should say, isn't nearly as amazing as he likes to tote. I know it'll be a shock to many to learn that he's lying, or at best exaggerating about that also. But when we're talking about OSHA, we're talking about regulations that keep poisons out of the workplace and away from workers, keep workers away from toxic materials that could get them sick or even lead to death, or hazardous materials that could lead to serious injury, like the fryer being a danger and splattering on people's faces, the temperature they have to keep it at, these kinds of things that protect workers. So it's hilarious to see MAGA be against those, wanting workers to not only work for $7.25 on the hour, but want their life to be in jeopardy the entire time that they're working and be in dangerous and unsafe conditions. I mean, this is the value that MAGA and Trump places on workers.
If you want to talk regulation versus deregulation, and the fact that he deregulated 22 regulations for every one that have since been added back. It is a key driver of inflation. It absolutely is. These small businesses that have to hire an army of lawyers and accountants to then provide the mountain of paperwork to regulatory agencies, it absolutely
look,
is true.
I'm in favor of simplifying the regulatory system. That's mostly at the state and local level, not at the federal level. And besides, if you look at Donald Trump's regulatory record. There was a big paper, a big analysis that came out, I want to say in 2020 or 2021.
Okay, but if we want to talk about federal
regulations
at the EPA, at OSHA, at the Department of Labor.
Worker safety.
Worker safety is important.
Worker safety. The idea of, whether or not children of a certain age should be able to work in factories, right?
Or at McDonald's.
Yeah, the EPA, OSHA, the Department of Labor, these are wild agencies to name when talking about deregulation. I mean, I swear, MAGA literally wants 13-year-olds working in factories where they're spewing out like toxic gas into the workplace and making our average lifespan 35 because of that. If there's two things we should absolutely regulate, it's stuff to protect our environment from being destroyed by corporations and things to protect our workers from being put in hazardous situations. We should absolutely be keeping child labor from happening as well. We shouldn't allow corporations to force workers into toxic conditions that can cut their lifespan just so they can make below a living wage, or put hazardous materials in their products that can unknowingly affect the consumer that they won't even see for years down the line. And yes, we should not let massive corporations destroy our environment in the name of capitalism and profits. This is an insane worldview that I hope most people at least can realize. Like, sure, some regulations should be cut. There's something to be said about housing regulations, the red tape there. These kinds of things should be done away with. It's unnecessarily difficult. But when you're talking about labor, environmental, and worker protection regulations as what should be removed, it's pretty clear who your motive is for, and it's not at all for the everyday people. Now, for Trump, he may have seen less regulations than other presidents, but regulations actually increased about 1% under him. So no, he was not deregulating 22 for every one regulation. He wasn't even deregulating 2 for every one regulation, which was his campaign promise. He just manipulates numbers by, I'll add any kind of deregulation, but I'll only add regulations that meet these kind of like really niche criteria, so he could say there was only a couple of them, when really it's just a lie because he knows his base isn't going to look it up and probably doesn't even know what regulations are outside of being told that they're bad by Republicans.